Hello everybody and welcome to another video, and in this video I'm going to try with all my power to give you a bite-sized version of what is coming in the new Path of Exile Settlers of Kalguur update. It is a gargantuan update, so do bear with me. There's a lot to get through, but I'm going to try and get it all in as quick and as short as time as possible, with a little bit of opinion and my plans sprinkled on top. Is that okay? Good. So, first of all, I didn't even intend on playing this update initially. I quite literally went from, no, you know what, I think I'm done with PoE until PoE 2 bestows its beautiful sunlight upon my face, to, what do you mean? Why have I left my wife and kids? Who's going to build King's March? Grinding Gear Games has its hands around my throat. And you know what? On this occasion, I think I'm okay with it. So let's blast through the details, and this is what you've got to look forward to. So the league mechanic itself is it's its own mini game with a lot of mobile-esque, and you're probably going, wait, what do you mean mobile-esque? And I'll get to that in a moment, but it is not as cringe as you may think it sounds. Essentially, you are building the town of King's March, or the city potentially, which is from Path of Exile 2. It's basically linking those two games together and establishing some lore before you get into that game. You may even recognize places from the Path of Exile trailers and gameplay reveals, such as like Rog's shop, where he like sets up in PoE 2 and things like that. With this town you're then building, you have the capacity to set up various like stations, like a blacksmithing station, which basically helps you do enchantments, where you'll be able to take enchantments, or rather bestow enchantments onto rare items that are usually modifiers on unique items. You will be able to recombinate items. Recombinators have made their comeback in the form of just like one of these stations. You will be able to send out ships to distant lands to make trade, and they will come back with a hell of a lot of loot from what we were shown. Likewise, you can actually make map devices where you send your own units to go and do your maps for you with some risk and reward. It's not a case of just, you know, set and forget. You will have to prime them, have some adequate levels chugged into them and things like that, make sure they can actually handle the content that they're taking on. But they map while you map, or whilst you're sleeping, or whilst you're at work, and you come back and you log in, and then there is loot waiting for you to be collected. I think that's fantastic. There's the currency exchange, which you can actually bring into your own hideout. It's Faustus from the Heist League. He's an NPC that you may be familiar with. He is in King's March, but he can also just be invited to your hideout, which I would recommend because you're probably going to be using the currency exchange a lot. For a quick version of that, it is essentially an auction house. It doesn't quite function like an auction house. There's no bidding, but you put in the currency, or stackable, as long as it is a homogeneous item that can stack. You can find it in the currency exchange, and you can go, okay, I want this amount of these, and this is what I'm prepared to buy them with, and you select your currency and whatnot, and then the order gets fulfilled by Faustus. Now, you might have noticed there's also gold involved, so there's a gold fee, and that's obviously mitigate botting and flipping and things like that, but the gold is also used for other things as well. It is used for respecking. Now, Orbs of Regret still exist, fret not, they're still a thing, but you now can find gold. You can't trade it, it can only be found by killing things, and as you kill things, gold will drop and be auto picked up, and it will go into its own little pocket in your inventory. It doesn't take up any inventory space. You can then use that for respecking. You can use it for the fees for the currency exchange. I believe it's also used for fees in other features in the Settlers of Kalguur League, but moving forward, as long as everything goes well, the currency exchange is looking to be a permanent feature of the game. Something we've all been asking for a very long time, because who wants to whisper a billion people only to get AFK messages or no response altogether, especially when you're often just looking for one bloody item. There are 3 bosses involved with the mechanic, one that actually can appear in your town with its own little situations, like they can take your little NPCs, your settlers hostage. There's another random one I believe you can find out in maps, and I think there's another one, but I can't remember how that occurs. Again, go watch the actual reveal if you want the hardcore details. And that's not all there is to this league. There is a massive amount of work that's been put outside of the League mechanic as well. Melee has been reworked. It has been improved. For the most part, around about every skill ever has pretty much been doubled in damage. There is a couple of skills here or there. Rage Vortex of Berserking, which is actually something I'll be using, got a very incremental buff. The vast majority of melee skills pretty much got doubled in damage. Most things have had their flat damage removed from them, so adds X to Y damage, and has just had the added damage effectiveness substantially increased. That's the flat damage removal is pretty much across the board, by the way. It's not just for the melee skills. It's been removed from quite a lot of the game. But again, a lot of the numbers have been tweaked to account for that. Melee totems have been deleted. They are no more. The devs basically said they didn't see the point of just constantly having to spam these totems to give you a buff. It was arbitrary. It felt horrible. It's not something you wanted to really do. So they just gave you the damage in other means. So doubling the actual damage on melee skills, for example, adding new passives and things to the tree that can benefit you in other ways, and also changing how banners work. So for example, banners no longer give you a aura whilst you have them on your back, but they do give you a substantial buff when, well, there are opinions on this, but they give you a bigger buff when they are then set down and they start burning through the stackable points, valor, I believe they're calling them. Personally speaking, some of the banners are kind of shit because they are things like more res, and it's like, well, you're going to be res capped in almost any situation anyway, because if you're not res capped, you're asking for pain, so why would you not be res capped and then suddenly use a banner that gives you more res? There's like very niche situations, sure, like if you went into a map that just had a fuckload of negative res, okay, maybe, but again, very niche, and you'd probably just skip that map if that was the case anyway. There is War Banner, which gives you more fizz damage, I believe it was, or fizz reduction. It was one of the, I can't remember, but that was like the one good banner that I saw personally. Rage has been reworked. I say reworked, basically they've made it a bit more accessible, I would say. There's a lot more rage-based things on the tree. The means to sustain rage seems to be substantially improved. On the passive tree, you can get like more rage on hit, on attack hit, on melee hit, on axe hit, things like that. But the maximum amount of rage you can get has been substantially reduced. They've taken out the increased attack speed built into rage, and I believe the movement speed, but you can still then get those effects added via other means like the Berserker Ascendancy, for example, or in the passive tree you can get more armor per rage and things like that. So you can get other effects, but otherwise rage now is basically lots more attack damage. The amount of maximum rage you can actually get now is pretty much halved. Items that provided rage have had the amount they provide either reduced or removed altogether. And again, there's little places on the tree that you can build it up again, but it's definitely not as much damage as you could have gotten before, I feel like, based on some POBing that I've been doing. But it looks like it's just a lot more accessible, easier to do, and sustain if you do go for a rage-based build. Raider has been straight up deleted. It no longer exists as an Ascendancy. Some of you are probably going, wait, what? It has been replaced by essentially a rework of the Warden from the Affliction League. So it utilizes bark skin, has a bunch of quite strong elemental based Ascendancy or passives, such as replacing Ignite with Scorch, for example. You can have tinctures now. Now, tinctures are primarily only for melee weapons, but there is an Ascendancy that then enables them for range. Tinctures have been reworked slightly as well. They now have like a mana burn effect. I have seen words on streams being thrown around where people have basically overcome the mana burn, but it is something, it's similar to rage where it gets faster over time, or can get faster over time. So that it's people are a bit up in the air about whether or not they're going to be good or not. I think it's something that when people work out how to use them, they're probably going to be very, very potent, but it's going to take a little bit of time for people to really get around like the whole mana burn and the cooldown things. Again, check out the actual patch notes of the reveal to get more info on that. Gladiator got a bit of a rework. There's a lot of block involved now. In fact, if you're not starting Gladiator, you're probably doing yourself a bit of a disservice because they are just free HP with the most basic gear. They have all the block. You can get block cap pretty much with... I think you can get block cap without having a shield. Endurance got slightly changed as well. So endurance no longer provides resistances, but it does provide elemental damage reduction. So just straight elemental damage reduction, which would then synergize with your resistances. So again, pretty much everyone and their dog is probably going to start with something in the bottom end of the tree that can get to endurance charges quite easily. Counter-attack skills have just been deleted, so there's no more like riposte, or I think one was literally called retaliation, and they have then been replaced with retaliation skills. So retaliation skills, they're a little bit more reactive. They require a bit more on your part as the player. It's no longer automated. You don't get hit and then something just magically happens. In these instances, usually some kind of circumstance needs to occur, and that will allow you to then use the skill. In most of these cases, it's block. So if you block an attack, that skill then becomes available. A lot of them seem to be quite strong and have big AoEs. Like there was a eviscerate, for example, which just sends out massive waves of damage. There was a divine something or other where lightning basically comes down from the sky and deletes the screen. So there's a lot of potential there for some new types of builds, like these retaliation type builds, or just working maybe one or two retaliation skills into your tree just for some free damage. There are some endgame improvements. Some of the main ones are T17 maps. Turns out something went gravely amiss with T17 maps last league. Shocking, I know, who knew? But it looks like, or from what we were told, there was quite literally an instance where two developers hadn't communicated with each other, both came up with the same idea, and then both implemented the same idea at the same time, which was giving the monsters more health. So they have now significantly nerfed the health of tier 17 monsters. They now have 55% less health. They also do 30% less damage. So T17s should be a lot more doable now without needing to be a bit of a meta cuck. Alongside that, the completion of a T17 map will still unlock a slot on your map device. However, you can also unlock a slot on your map device by doing a 10-way Maven invite. So that's when you fight 10 of the bosses all at the same time. So that can unlock the 5th slot if you haven't done T17s first, or it can unlock the 6th slot if you've already done the T17 map. Delirium's been slightly changed. There's no longer 30 waves. They've halved it to 15, and they've made the rewards a bit more spread out and the challenge a bit more spread out. So you're not just dunking through like the first 15 and then struggling with the latter 10. You just have a more balanced and linear form of progression through the waves now. If you haven't guessed already, Atlas passives, there's many changes, retaliation based ones. Impales had some changes as well. Rage rework, the whatever the hell else, there's tincture stuff as well. That things have changed, things have moved, and things have been deleted because they're no longer relevant. Like overwhelm has been deleted. It's no longer a thing. You now just ignore physical damage rather than have the chance to ignore physical damage. Lots of things like that. Item quantity is out. Item rarity is in. If you are a magic find player, that is. If you like to do magic find, no longer will you be able to increase your item quantity through your gear, only the item rarity. And you can only get item rarity on unique items. So essentially you need to have found the good items and able to enable you to then farm and MF for more good items. This seems to have been quite a popular choice. I know some people wanted Magic Find to be deleted altogether. I'm not one of those people. I do see a place for it. Even though I don't engage with it, I appreciate the fact that people want to try and make a sacrifice of power to try and get more Magic Find and so on and so forth. And in most situations, you would hope it balances out and works out correctly. And I think this change is a step to getting towards that end. There has been a lot of changes to skill gems, be it support or otherwise. You should, if you're keen to find out about a specific skill, I would suggest checking out the patch notes, because pretty much everything has been touched in one way or another. Likewise for Ascendancies, a lot of the Ascendancies have been touched. I think maybe 3 haven't. Like Shadows Ascendancies I don't think got touched. The Witches didn't get touched. And I think at least 1 or 2 of the Templars didn't get touched. Otherwise, everyone else's was very much touched. So go give those a ganders. There's lots of there's lots of quality of life changes. You can now hover over a map on your Atlas and it will show you what cards that you want. Reminds me that you can now find the Nameless Seer in tier 16s and tier 17s. And when you find him, you can of course get a free unique item. And you can also scry a map. So you can go to your atlas and say, I want the cards from this map to actually drop on this map. And it will link the two together. You can have as many links as you want, as long as those links aren't onto the same map. So you can't just basically go, let's put everything on the Strand, as much as we would all love to. You can only have one link to one map at a time. There's been some general monster balance changes, just lots of balance changes everywhere. Everything. There is so much. Just go read the patch notes. Why are you watching this video? Go read them. Go now. Do it. Ruthless got updated for Ruthless Enjoys. And of course, the usual bug fixes, improvements to graphics, lighting, sound, etc. Thank you, GGG, clap, clap, clap. So, what's my plan? So my plan is on Friday, fingers crossed, I'm actually having some men come round to my house, and they have a purpose, fret not. They're actually changing the gas and electric meters in my basement. I've still got the old school style ones that use dials to tell you what your meter readings are, and I'm having them swapped out for like digital smart meters, so I no longer have to go into my horrible basement where there's spiders and cobwebs everywhere, and I hate it. But they are due to arrive between 1 p.m. and 5 p.m, so hopefully considerably sooner than the 5 p.m. end of that spectrum. It'll take them an hour or two to get everything swapped. If that goes to plan, I will then go on stream, do some last minute theory crafting, some changes maybe to my POB, item filters, etc, etc. And then I intend on league starting Berserker, which got a it got nerfed because of the rage changes, but it's still kind of beefy at the same time. I did a POB. It's a character that I actually played back in Affliction when you had the Ascendancy that gave you the charms, so you could get more AoE very easily. I gave it a quick go the other day, and it's still very potent, just without the screen-wide AoE. And yeah, so I'm going to be doing that with Dual Strike of Ambidexterity, Rage Vortex of Berserking, and Impale and Rage, of course. That's my plan to league start. It's probably a terrible idea. As I mentioned, endurance charges are very, very popular, and Ralakesh boots are kind of required, so I imagine they are going to be obscene in price. But maybe we can find our own, who knows. There's a couple of other items where I'm like, this is a terrible decision, but I'm a fearless bastard, so I'm going to continue with it anyway. As I mentioned earlier, if you intend on starting the league, you probably want to start with endurance. It's free, easy damage mitigation. Gladiator, as I mentioned, has got a whole lot of block built into it now. You can get block very easily just through the tree without ascendancies as well, but it's all based on like the bottom marauder / dual ascend of the tree. So if you are considering a league start, I would probably avoid the top end of the tree, so you've got some, you know, beefy items to give you some actual damage reduction without the use of endurance charges. Oh, that reminds me, fizz damage conversion is not quite deleted. Lightning coil still exists, but if you're a Taste of Hate enjoyer, nope. Physical damage being converted to any other element is pretty much gone now. That as a defense is going to be something that you can no longer rely on. Again, probably a good reason to get some endurance charges built into your build somehow. The Band of the Brotherhood amulet, where it converts your frenzy charges to endurance charges, that exists, of course, but for a league start, that's quite dependent on acquiring that item in the first place. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. I'm going to be playing that for the next few weeks, Path of Exile, of course, and then it will be Black Myth Wukong in the 20th of August, which I'm also very much looking forward to. I've been waiting for that game for years. So if you want to watch me play Path of Exile, fumble my way through brand new builds, exploring new worlds, as it were, things like that, and building up King's March, you can find me on twitch.tv/Brian the Pirate. I also have a Discord server if you want to hang out and like collaborate and work with other folks in the PoE community. We've got a few players in there. All the links, of course, will be in the description, and of course you can find me on socials at Brian the Pirate for basically everything. But that's going to be it for me. Thank you all very much for watching the video. I hope you had a good time. Like, subscribe, ding the bell, all that shenanigans. But until next time, farewell. I'll remember you.